what was the average CAP meeting like originally when you first went to them? What was the first CAP meeting like?
But, well, the community organizations were the ones that really sort of like turned people out for these meetings itself. All right. So when we first started, we had like, a huge sort of turnout for like many of these meetings and the agendas. We laid out what the agendas were. And within that agenda was sort of like these issues of accountability. What are the police doing about these issues? What are the elected officials doing about like services? What is the city doing about providing like long-term services for people in the community? So that's how those meetings originally sort of started. And, they were really good sort of like meetings where you could develop leaders at. Where, you gave like a community person, a spot on the agenda itself to raise an issue that they were so passionate about. And they had an opportunity to speak about these issues and talk about some of the solutions to them. So those how the meetings sort of really started, and we were getting really a lot of participation from the community. They were really sort of like meetings that were accountability sessions more than just meetings itself. And I think that was really something that was very powerful, like not only for me but the people within like those meetings in the community. That you're going to come to those meetings and you're going to get something done. You're not going to come to the meetings and sort of complain, moan, and groan about something, and then sort of go home like angry. That was not what those meetings were about. They were about actual accountability. They're about getting things done. They're about looking toward the future.
Okay, so were these meetings, were they that way because of the community and your organizations and the community organizations setting the agenda? Or was this because this is how the police wanted the meetings to be?
No, this was the community organizations themselves sort of setting the agenda for the meetings. It was the community organizations who were responsible for turnout. It was the community organizations who like laid out the agenda, and based on what the issues were, it was community organizations who like mobilized people to follow up on those like issues. And I think after a couple of years, okay, the cops thought that okay, this is ridiculous. All right, we can't have this anymore. These people are telling us what we should be doing. Elected officials were coming to the like meetings and getting beat up about I think issues that they should be addressing, and they weren't. And it wasn't anything sort of political about this whatsoever. It was all about accountability, but they turned it like to the people and say, well, these people are against me and they're going to run against me. And these community organizations are supporting this candidate or that candidate, which was not happening at all. It was all just a ruse for the police and the city to co-opt the meetings into to a point that, the community organizations were pushed out, and that whole sort of system of accountability was gone. And then these meetings just became a bunch of like cops wanting people to snitch on their like neighbors, and have
How long did,
a few sort of community people who they were paying. Now that's another thing. A lot of the CAPS people who, once the community organizations got out of like the CAPS meetings, the city started paying like beat facilitators. So these folks were actually getting paid by the city, and what they would do is, they would have the meetings, and after a while, the meetings started to get smaller and smaller, primarily because they weren't really addressing the issues that people were concerned about. And once those meetings started to get smaller and smaller, like the beat facilitator would just turn the meeting over to the cops, and the cops would sort of run the meeting itself, and basically sort of like try to create a snitch network.